What's going on, guys? This is the Undead Prophet, and today we're going to be comparing the primary arms macro and micro 5 times prisms. But first, let me take you back to the beginning. So earlier this year, me and the crew played a round of Tactical Where's Waldo. For those of you that are new, it's basically a scavenger hunt where our buddy Keith will set up objects and man-sized targets that we have to positively ID downrange. However, instead of objects this time around, it was man-sized targets that were camouflaged along the tree line. One target was camouflaged in M81 woodland and another in standard multi-game. The shooters for that day were myself running a 16-inch AR with a Vortex Strike Eagle 1-8, Locks running a 16-inch AR with a primary arms 3-18, our friend Giga Chad running his home-built 18-inch AR with a Vortex 6-24, TJ running his 14.5 DCM Recce with a Vortex 1-10 Razor, and finally Keith with his 13.9 AR with an ACOG. The results from that day were the people running magnified optics were able to accurately PID the targets downrange, while I struggled to get a crisp and clear sight picture. However, Keith and TJ were the oddballs because TJ running the Razor 1-10 due to its design was able to gather a little bit more light because of his objective lens. And Keith was able to also accurately PID the targets downrange due to the ACOG's larger objective lens.
So me and Locke started talking and decided to do an experiment based off this theory. Could something like a fixed magnified optic similar to an ACOG be a better solution on a Recce style AR? I found these 13.95 ballistic advantage barrels for a pretty good price, and before we knew it, we were off to the races. Locke chose to put the CQB reticle macro 5 times with a 509T on top, while I chose to go slightly different with the Aurora 5 times micro with the dive bore red dot mount. So after 3 months of testing, evaluating, adjusting zeros, and a minor ammo drought, here's what we found about the two optics. Let's start with the macro. Build quality wise, for the price you're paying, it's a superb optic. Crystal clear with very little edge-to-edge distortion. The adjustment knobs are capped and retained, however, the retainer is just a rubber string similar to a Ranger band, but with less strength. Mounting the optic to a weapon system is a breeze, as well as zeroing it. As for the Picatinny rail on top, it's usable for any micro red dots, such as a Holosun 509T or an RMR, but puts your height over bore almost at 3.25 inches, which is a lot of offset to take into consideration for up close work. An artisan that goes by Red Arrow Concepts designed a dedicated mount for the Holosun 509T that interfaces with the recoil lugs that's machined into the body of the optic. This combination, according to Thomas, is the ideal way to set this style of optic up. Now, let's get into the micro. My theory that Primary Arms was trying to go for was a smaller body version of the macro. Now, depending on how you're going to set this optic up will determine a few things about its performance. Firstly, if you're not mechanically inclined, this optic is going to be slightly confusing and a lot of screwing. That's what she said. The optic alone comes with additional mounts to configure the optic to your liking. Now, when you get into the die board, that's where things get interesting. The die board simply sandwiches itself between the body of the optics and the base mounts you're using. The Glock MOS portion functions just like an MOS system should. Grab your correct mounting plate, optic, and go to work. There's two main issues I have with this way of mounting. Issue number one, we're stacking tolerances like Jenga blocks. There's a lot of screws to torque and maintain, which I believe contributed to the 2 times the optic came off of zero from my personal testing. And issue number two is the dive board itself. During my testing process, I had a drop test in the works. However, thanks to Brass Facts, he dropped a video reviewing this optic and proved with moderate force the dive board is a failure point. Because of that, I didn't feel comfortable breaking a $400 optic just to make this video and say, yep, it's unreliable, so I skipped that part. So to answer the original question imposed, can a Prism optic perform better than an LPVO? Well, sort of. If you're interested in shooting long-range targets with this, unfortunately, they both are mediocre. There's no parallax adjustment, and even though the fixed 5 times is helpful, if you're trying to shoot small targets, like 6-inch circles or even smaller, you're going to have a hard time. Can it get the job done? Sure. But to be entirely honest, I really don't know who and what this optic could be recommended for. However, I will say if you're interested in something like this, I highly recommend the macro with the 509T with red Aero Concepts mount and the Aurora reticle. If you have any further questions, please leave them in the comments below. And until then, I'm out.